Hi, my name is Gretchen. Today I will teach you 4th grade math multiplication and division techniques. These techniques are line multiplication, area multiplication, lattice multiplication, partial quotes, and column division. Use the technique that is easiest for you. For me, the easiest technique for me is area multiplication because that's the fastest method for me and I can understand it the most, but everyone's different. Some people might like line multiplication more or lattice multiplication, but for me it's area multiplication. This is the beginning of line multiplication for 123 times 17, and you start out by drawing lines. So notice there are 3 lines in this row. The 1 represents the 1 in 123. The 2 lines represent the 2 in 123. And these 3 lines represent the 3 in 123. So for the 17, notice there's just like one line right here, which represents the 1 in 17. And these 7 lines that go across like this, those represent the 7 in 17. So this is how you start, and I'm going to tell you what these lines represent. Every time a line crosses, it is a multiplication. The crossing in the upper left is a tens line crossing with a hundreds line. It's the 1 in the it's in the hundreds place for the number 100, and it is the tens line for 17 because notice it's the 1 line in 17, and the hundreds line for 123. So in the upper left corner, the quantity represented is 10 times 100, which is 1,000. That intersection represents 1,000 in terms of quantity. On the bottom left is 7 ones lines crossed with 100s lines, which gives us the number 700. To get the 200, it's a tens line crossed with a tens line, and each one is worth 100, which is how you get 200. To get the 200, it's a tens line crossed with a tens line, and each one is worth 100, which is how you get 200. Notice how I put the dots in the middle at the intersections. Notice there are 14 points, and those are the 10 lines, so there are 14 of them. Times 10 is how you get 140. The 30 on top is 3 tens lines multiplied by ones lines, so that's how you get 30. On the bottom right, you get 21. Notice there are 21 points, each worth 1, which is how we get 21. So we are done with this problem, and notice adding all of those numbers up, you get the answer, which is 2,091. This is area multiplication. I set up the problem. You divide the square into how many digits there are. 123 has 3 digits, so on the top it's 100 plus 20 plus 3. And there's only 2 digits in the number 17, so there are only 2 boxes on the side. And 17 is 10 plus 7, and it's broken down into 100 plus 20 plus 3. And the reason we're using 10s and 100s and 20s is because they are easier to multiply with, and you add up all the products to get the final answer. So this is the worked out problem for 123 times 17 using area multiplication. Notice I multiplied 10 times 100, which is 1,000. 10 times 20 is 200. 10 times 3 is 30, etc., etc. And notice I added up all the products, and notice you get the final answer in the end. See, I told you area multiplication was faster than the other methods, but hopefully you understand this, but this is the easiest method for me. This is lattice multiplication. I am going to draw it out and show you how it works. As well, the answer is 2,091 when you multiply 123 by 17. But how did we get that answer? Let's use lattice multiplication to find the answer. Part of lattice multiplication is dividing the square into diagonals. Notice that I put 123 on top. Did you notice like the 3 lines going straight down? And the 17 is on the other side. And you just multiply. I'm going to show you how to multiply, how this works. And in the end, you just like add up the diagonals to get the answer, but I'll show you that later. So I worked out part of this problem, and as you can see, it's similar to area multiplication, except it's divided into diagonals. Now, notice like in area multiplication, you multiply length times width. Like look at the 7 times 3 is equal to 21, and near the 7, you put the 2 on top, the 1 on the bottom, and look at 3 times 1 is equal to 3, and if it is not a 2-digit number, you put a 0 on top. And notice the pattern. I wrote out the 0, 2, 0 times 1. It's because, like, notice you're multiplying times 1. In this problem and other problems, you have different numbers, but notice the diagonals. I am not finished with this problem yet, but I will be soon. This problem is not finished yet, but it is close to getting done. Now notice on the bottom right, on one of the columns, there's just a 1, so you just put the 1. On the bottom now, do you notice the pattern? This is how you understand lattice multiplication, how you find the answer just by multiplying the other ones, because this is what makes lattice multiplication different, is you add up the numbers in the diagonals in the end, and then you end up like with the answer. Now, notice 4 plus 2 plus 3 is equal to 9, which is why you put the 9 on the bottom. I got the 0 at the bottom of the square by adding 7 plus 1, which is equal to 8. 8 plus 2 is equal to 10, and then there's just a 0 there. You carry the 1 in the 10 over to the next column on top, and notice I added the 0 plus 1 plus the 1 that was carried over, which is equal to 2, and the other column on top is 0, so the answer is 2,091, and that is how we got to the answer of 2,091. This is 4,368 divided by 56, worked out using the partial quotients method. Notice we multiplied the 56 times 10 times 20 times 40 times 8 to get to the answer. So 56 times 40 is 2,240. 56 times 20 is 1,120. 56 times 10 is 560, and 56 times 8 is 448. So used 56 times 40 in the beginning and subtracted it from 4,368, got 2,128, and then subtracted that number using 56 times 20, And then from 20, we subtract 56 times 10, and then what is close to 560, which is like 56 times 8, trying a smaller number. And then you subtract 448 from that number, and then you get to 0. And with the partial quotients method, notice, like whatever numbers, you used to multiply by, you add them up. Okay, so 40 plus 20 plus 10 plus 8 is equal to 78. This is column division. It is one technique to do division. So this problem is 4,368 divided by 56. So using this technique, the first thing you do is like, how many times does 56 go into 4? C, 0 times, so C, you get the 4. And with this technique, you just like bring down the 3, and then like 43 minus 0, that's 43. And then you need to bring down the 6. In the column division, you bring down a lot of numbers. And 56 times 7 is 392, so you subtract that from 436, and you get 448, and 56 times 8 is 448 exactly, so there's no remainder, so the answer is 78.